to the InnerVerse. It's an illusion.
Welcome to the One Within All to another episode of InnerVerse podcast with me, your host, Chance. And as I reflect upon the last 7 years of doing this show, the directions that my interests have evolved towards would be totally surprising to the past version of me who was first inspired to start podcasting. But on the list of things I was into way back then, visionary art and the mysteries of consciousness, as explored by brave psychedelic adventurers, would have been some of the top items I wanted to bring to the world through the InnerVerse portal. And it was a long time ago, near the start of the journey, that I was blown away to be contacted by a listener who may very well be the greatest creative mind in the psychedelic digital art world, an intrepid interversal explorer and authentic technician of the sacred, the one and only Hakan Hisim. I was truly honored that such an incredibly creative and prolific professional was interested in what I was doing and willing to come on and speak to me about what he does. Fast forwarding to today, around 4 years since our last meeting on the air, and the subject matter of my studies has expanded into the linguistic riddles embedded in alphabets and languages that may just help us understand who we are and where we came from. Well, it turns out that today's guest, Hakan, has been converging with our InnerVerse path in his own experiments and experience, and he's been opening up portals to hyperspace and retrieving what he calls Xenoglossolalia, or in other words, he's been hard at work transcribing the transcendental symbols that are sometimes seen by people on expeditions into the astral realms. What truths might be peeking through the cracks in the veil that Hakan has been widening with his art? Are the origins of alphabets and language to be found in the sacred realms of psychedelia? These are the questions that Hakan seeks to inspire in us as he prepares to launch his newest project, the Universal Transmissions Codex, a pan-dimensional manuscript based on the concepts of transcending language and the felt presence of direct experience. On top of that, Hakan has some incredible stuff to share about finding the light within via an unexpected dark night of the soul, a voyage that would have made most men crumble to dust, but one that Hakan was able to come out the other side from with renewed respect for life and the vigor to revivify our love for the mystery of existence by sharing tantric techniques for self-realization. And not the sexualized tantra that you may have heard about, but meditations and mindsets for overcoming suffering and finding peace and joy in our present moment. You can find Hakan's art online, linked in the show notes, hakanhisim.net. And while you're perusing the show notes, be sure to check out the successful Kickstarter campaign for the Universal Codex, launching later this month. It might have actually been launched already. We'll have to talk about that. And best of all, you can pick up awesome art merch to adorn your temple, both the bodily one and dwelling place, at his online store. My house is decked out with Hakan's creations, and everyone who comes over always comments at the high vibrational feeling they pick up on in here. And in my opinion, it's in no small part thanks to his beautiful work. So now let's kick it up a notch and get into this 4 years in the making conversation with the wizard of the psycho-digital dimension and transcendent technician of the soul, my good friend Hakan. Welcome back to InnerVerse, man. It's so awesome to be speaking again. Oh, I have you muted. Okay. Okay, go for it.
Beautiful to be back with you, brother. Thank you for those amazing introduction. And yeah, it's been quite a while. We've been keeping in touch with some emails back and forth, but uh, yeah, I've been looking forward to connecting with you again, sharing our what we've been through and our travels. So this is an amazing time for me right now.
This is an amazing time for me as well, man. I've been wanting to reconnect in a longer format for quite some time, and we've kind of danced around it and found the perfect moment here in this space right into the intro to Libra season. But Hakan, because a lot of our current audience maybe weren't with us back in the day when we've had you on in the past, I'd love for you to introduce yourself and your journey, where you're at in the world, and what comes to mind whenever I ask you who is Hakan Hisim.
Um, well, uh, I don't know. The definition of myself has changed quite a lot over the past few years. So right now, uh, um, I I I like to call myself an alchemist because it's not everything that I do is art anymore, or actually the art that I do is a process of alchemy. But it's not just that. Um, I love the process of transformation in any way, shape, or form. So, and the biggest or the main manifestation of that in my life is the art, um, or I would say transforming or alchemizing experiences into art forms or artworks. So I've been doing this for my entire life. I grew up with very creative parents, and so I was quite very inspired by them, and I pursued art, and I went to art school. Uh, I mean, it was just a regular path, until I guess until when I was um, after I graduated a few years after that. Uh, I It was just this slice of time when I discovered the art of Alex Gray and Luke Brown around the same time. And that was around the same time when I first had my first DMT experiences. And it was like a complete transformative turning point in my life, because like up until then, and still now, art is very, very deeply entrenched. It's a like very important part of my life. But art was, um, to me, it was explained or it was in this, I guess, well codified terms of what art was supposed to be. So I would do like abstract and surreal art and mix stuff together, and it was there was nothing felt new to it until I came across what the concept of visionary art or psychedelic art and psychedelic experiences through like the transcendental experience. Not because I had acid trips before and some other psychedelics, but the DMT experience was something completely different. And my whole life mission at that point became I wanted to, because I knew that most of the people on this planet weren't going to experience the DMT experience, or weren't going to have this DMT trip or something, but I wanted to show them what it looked like, at least because I had that visual thing to me. So I wanted to kind of portray that visual experience to people, and that changed my whole thing because I was working I was working with oil paints and acrylics, and I realized that in order to capture the level of detail, I needed to really dive into the digital realms and to learn all the digital software and get into more uh, computer-based art. So that really it was like a beginning of a whole journey for me, where the whole spectrum and the trajectory of my art and my career changed within a few weeks. And then, yeah, like fast forward, it's been like, I guess since then it's been 20 years or so, and I've just been uh, going in and out of experiences since then. But yeah, I guess that's it.
Yeah, that's a good start to this. And now I'm wondering, just you speaking there gave me about 4 questions I wanted to bounce into. So the first
Yeah.
one, man, I don't know where to start. Okay. I guess a question people are probably wondering right now, right away, is how your relationship to psychedelics has evolved over time. And if you think the the doors of perception are opened by that in a way which you can still access even as somebody that's not using them.
Yeah, that's a very uh, it's a powerful question. It has, I mean, um, from most of my uh, young adult life, psychedelics were a main driving force in my life, and um, I was like very active and very um, enthusiastic about um, spreading the message and the word of the psychedelic experience. And I thought my art would be the best medium to do that, because before that I still had the experiences, but I didn't have the 10,000 or plus hours where I put my actual, blood and sweat into it. But I would talk to people about the experience. But I mean, talk is cheap. Like you have to kind of show people or guide them or something like that. So it was it was a very important part of my life, and it it did many things. I know I can go really, really deep into this, but I don't want to just go on off onto like different tangents.
But I am actually very curious about how, as somebody that is very experienced in those realms, how it affects your life when even outside of the experience. You know what I mean? Like, how does
Yeah,
having those experiences change who you are, even in the sober, physical reality, mundane world?
yeah, yeah. Well,
And the
I
and
guess
the like maybe even the ups and downs of that, because it's not all sunshine and rainbows, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, to be totally honest, I think Terence McKenna said this before as well. But I mean, uh, using psychedelics and having these experiences, I don't think they made me a better person overall. They didn't. Um, I think becoming a better person was by personal just experience and and going over that experience. Um, so I think one of the major ways that it affected me earlier on was I had a very um, I wouldn't say kind of religious upbringing, and where I was deep into different religious and mystical traditions, and I was quite a strong believer in different traditions in different times of my life when I was younger. And I guess when I was 17, 16 or 17, between that and the age of 23 or something, I became a really kind of devout atheist. And I think those were the most, some of the most, like, when I look back, very depressive and troubled times in my life. That were like, it was also very like, I was rebellious as well, but and I had an extreme fear of death because I had lost my father had died when I was 10 years old. Well, I was quite young. So these experiences, they kind of reaffirmed my or this feeling of gnosis, of actual experience of something that was beyond the physical, that was beyond the physical realms, and it got me back into touch with things that I would do. In my early teens, when I would do meditation and breath work and different things like this, and it definitely wasn't cool back then. I had a very interesting mother, so so that was one of the main ways that it influenced me and changed me, was that it pulled me out of a very materialized worldview. And then later on, I guess the way that I used psychedelics was not very I mean, I wouldn't advise it to anybody, because I wasn't in any sort of community or anything, and there really wasn't much of anything on the internet back then. So I would just do self-experimentation, and most of it was just hedonism. And I was like, I was just experimenting and just writing down, and I got into this whole psychonaut kind of thing where I view myself as this kind of this navigator or something like that. And
Yeah, it's kind of like a spiritual materialism, where instead of accumulating physical stuff, people in the psychedelic world can tend to sort of try to pile up or hoard trippy experiences and stories.
Yeah. I have tons of trip reports on Erowid. I used to love reading Erowid, and I would post a lot of experiences there. And I got really into that whole culture of, trip reports and experiences and that sort of stuff. But it was, I don't think it made me it didn't pull me into the spiritual realm. It it did actually, but I wasn't aware of it. And I think it opened me up to certain aspects of, when I look back, to certain aspects of possession, and certain aspects of giving up sovereignty in a way where and it's just the way that I experienced it. And this went on through, because then years later I discovered the festival culture, and I went into that whole thing, and that was a whole different, and I was working in that culture as well, and doing festivals and the whole drug scene and everything, and that was like this whole hedonistic adventure, and that fueled that whole machine, that the whole thing. It was never really about self exploration. Self exploration was this kind of, there was like an excuse, just an excuse to get high or something. That's how it was for me. And at the most highest level, I think, was that I would use it as something, as fuel or inspiration to create more artworks and imagery and things that I would explore and write down and sketch. And I just love pulling stuff back from there. But I was too much involved in the consumption of drugs and and trying to recover from all of that I was unable to put together the art in a coherent way, or put together the writing or the thoughts or everything in a coherent way. And that went on for quite a while until I kind of I went on a hiatus after I was I had this pretty strong addiction for many years to I think it's called JWH. So it's this synthetic cannabinoid, and it was I was using it for many years, long before it was known, because I had like lots of contacts in the underground chemist world and stuff. So and this is like horrendous stuff. It's very powerful, and it's the addiction potential is massive. And so I got really, my life got really messed up with this.
I have a couple of family members that I witnessed have addictions to synthetic cannabinoids that led them to way worse stuff eventually when they couldn't get that anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine that, like, at that time, I was I was in my previous marriage, and it was kind of falling apart, and I had to, I had to make that choice of getting my life back on track, and to save the marriage and to get back into the world. So I kind of quit. I went cold turkey on everything, like alcohol, tobacco, all drugs, everything. And I stayed that way for 4 years. And during those 4 years, I immersed myself just in tons of tutorials of digital art, and it was around that time I discovered the art of Android Jones, and just a whole bunch of digital artists. And it was around that time when I was, it's like I was just 4 years just doing art. I had shut down everything on social media, and I just went to work at a VFX company, and I was just doing visual effects for them and just doing my own art. And then that's when around the end of that 4 years, I made that artwork of serpentine apotheosis of the Shiva Shakti image in 2012, and I actually activated my Facebook account and everything just to share that image online, and then that kind of went viral. And after that, everything really changed for me at that time. So I went to a very creative phase without using any drugs. I was trying out a lot of psychedelic art because I kind of, that's the one.
I just brought it on screen, the serpentine apotheosis.
I kind of found my own formula of making of visualizing those experiences, and I was quite back then. It was quite prolific. I would do it, make like tons and tons of images, and it was around that time when that's when I started to get into I guess more self-realization and meditations and uh, just a deeper introspective um, look into reality. And
I think this kind of demonstrates a point that I wanted to make. You mentioned, and I wanted you to speak on this. You'd mentioned how the psychedelic use didn't really make you a better person. And that's big part of the like evangelism of psychedelics that we see in the world right now. That it's like the cure all things that basically is like I think you are demonstrating how what was the real impetus to become a better person was you're working on your creative skills. That I like, this is something I like to say, and there's so many reasons for this, but that creativity is the most authentic spiritual path a person can engage in. And one of the reasons, there's many reasons for that, but one of the reasons is that if you want to actually improve, if you want to have a better translation of what's in your imagination into a physical form through something you're making, it requires at a certain point that you become healthier, that you become more clear-minded, that you won't be able to achieve the next level of skill and artistry unless you drop an addiction or you drop some weight or you get things out of your head that are distracting you. So creativity, if you're really going to go further and farther and better with it, requires you to become healthier mentally, physically, spiritually. So that's why it's the spiritual path, because it takes you to, that's what self-actualization is like you're unlocking your potential.
Yeah, man, exactly. But yet the act of creation, I couldn't have said that better. That is the highest path that we have. I mean, because I'm a father now, and I have 2 children and another on the way now, and this is I found that because I've always loved the whole concept of creation of ideas, conception and inception, and the actual, going through it and doing the work and making it. But that's like a so below version as above in this plane or in this realm of which we create or we facilitate the creation of life. We have children, and it requires sacrifice and kind of going into the crucible, into that alchemical crucible of going into the fire and being purified and coming out fortified 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times. The whole process of alchemy. That's why I really use that a lot, that terminology a lot in my artwork, in my life. That's why I call myself an alchemist, because that's what we, in essence, all of us do actually, is we transform, we transmute, and even if we're not aware of what we do, that's what we do. We always transmute some form of matter, some form of information into something else. And being aware of what we transmute and what we transform. That's the realization of being the alchemist, I think, in a way.
Well said. Yeah, there's so much wisdom in, like, if you can master a skill or achieve mastery, there's no like top mastery. You can always go further. But
Yeah,
the process of creation is fractal, and if you can learn to create in a masterful way in one area, you can see how that applies to other areas that you might want to, or that you're just observing. That's the, like, God as the master alchemist, that everything is operating in this realm by those creative order of operations, or like the mathematics of that we see in the cycle of the seasons in the macrocosm, or the cycle of a day,
yeah,
or the larger world ages.
exactly, yeah.
So I think this is a good time to fast forward a bit to like where you're at now with the deployment of the Universal Codex, because
Yeah.
this is very interesting. So I'll just let you take it away and introduce what that project entails, and then we can look at some of the pages from it.
Yeah, I forgot, but maybe we can get back into that later. I wanted to really compare my more recent experiences, spiritual experiences with psychedelics, and there is a very, very um, strong, palpable difference between the psychedelic experience and what um, self-realization or samadhi is in my personal experience. So maybe we can get into that later on, in when we get back into those uh, experiences. But I just wanted to,
Yeah, I just took a
something
note
that,
of that. We'll definitely specifically open that topic up.
yeah, yeah. Okay, so yeah, the codex, yeah, that went quite well. It went the Kickstarter campaign went better than I expected. I just wanted it to make enough for it to get printed, because that's what I wanted. I just wanted the book to be out there and to circulate throughout the world, and for people to have copies and show each other and stuff like that. So that's what I wanted, and it it went like, I guess, almost yeah, around double the funding amount. So I was quite happy with the way it turned out.
Not
Um,
surprising. There's nothing like it that's ever been manifest into material reality.
yeah, thanks. I mean, and it was quite organic. There was like no, I didn't really do any, really, advertising or anything like that. It was just, and it's, I guess I've been kind of advertising in a way for around 10 years, just creating this whole series. Like the Universal Transmission series was kind of was born from this first work, the Tetragrammaton, which I made in 2013. And it was like, I made that and I shared that on Facebook. And then while I was making it, and when I shared it, I just got the feeling of this would really be cool as like a book or a series or something, because it was something that I channeled from my childhood, which was just the xenolinguistic aspect of, uh, I I don't have I wish I had the journals here with me. I have a few journals where I would just write down this nonsensical alphabets and codes and stuff when I was young. And I'd filled out all these journals, and sometimes I would just do these weird drawings as if it was like this encyclopedia, and just like so this is this and that, but it's like completely nonsensical. It didn't make any sense to me, but I love the fact that it didn't make sense to me. And I would do that for years and years, and then I forgot about it. And
I didn't know you were doing that as a young person before even encountering psychedelics.
yeah, I
Wow,
started
so this has
doing
always
this.
been kind of a part, this has always been inside you to reveal this.
Yeah. I think it's um, on the Universal Transmissions website. I think on the journal page, there's just a small photo of one of the pages that I took. But yeah, I'll try to find some photos of the journals that I have for you. And I started doing them, I guess, soon after my father died. So I was around 10 years old. And I did them until I was about 15 years old. So I would fill these journals with these texts, these different types of texts that I didn't understand. But the thing was, I would see also these texts in my dreams as well. So I would have these dreams where I would see these different languages. And then in the morning when I woke up before going to school, I'd scribble them down in the journals. And it was just fun. Like, it was just, I used those in games because I used to play a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. And so I used to incorporate that stuff into scenarios or into campaigns or just stuff into the games that we would make together and play together and stuff. And so it was just like a bit of fun for my childhood until I did DMT. And then when I did DMT, I was, wow, this is crazy. This is the stuff that I saw in my dreams, and this is the stuff that I would write down. And then I saw Luke Brown's stuff, and he had the same kind of writing. And then I saw Alison Gray, and then I was like really just flabbergasted, kind of like, this is like really, really weird. And I realized that there was really something to this. And so that's when in 2013, that's when I first started doing the first images of these pages where I would do them. And then I really got into it because there was a lot of good feedback from people when I shared it. And because it was something very personal to me. And it was something that it was a hard step for me to take. Not a hard step, but I guess because it was really easy to keep doing the kind of artwork and images that I was doing, and I was getting lots of sales and lots of likes and stuff, with all the artwork I was doing back in 2013 and 14. And I had this very specific style, and I had lots of followers. And then I decided to do something completely different. It was like something that's like 180 degrees different from what I was doing. And it was, for me back then, I guess it needed a bit of bravery. But I felt that it was something from my childhood that was calling me that, you should do this, keep doing this. And then when people said, yeah, this is cool, I decided to keep doing it. And then on and off, it went on for a whole 10 years. And the Cosmic Egg is part of that series, or the Vitruvian Spirits and Vehicular Dynamics. There's like certain artworks that people really resonate with that are part of that whole series. And that, after for the past 3 or 4 years, I really went deep into creating the structure and actually creating the book, because I thought, like, I could work on this art for years and years, but I need to get something physical out, and I wanted to have this book of this feeling of this experience of something that's familiar yet alien at the same time, and I wanted to do this as a 300-page book, and then I recently, like after doing 100 pages, I decided to release it as just the first volume of it as 150 pages. So that's how the book came out to be. And I recently started work on the second volume as well. So I've kind of structured the whole thing out now as 3 volumes. I want the whole thing to be like this trilogy of 450 pages with different dynamics and ideas in the different volumes.
Here's the famous cosmic egg. I show this one all the time.
Yeah,
And, we'll have to return to this and talk about this again. But I wanted to, on the subject of the Xenoglossolalia, this pulling out of the ether these glyphs and alphabets, has this process shed any kind of light or personal insight on what you think about possibilities in terms of the origin of our writing, of our language? Because we talk about it all the time on InnerVerse. Like our very last episode was with Marty Leeds, who is a gematria wizard, revealing things like the English alphabet having the 26-letter structure because the first 13 letters are encoding a septenary, or 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then that's mirrored to give you the 26. And there's incredible stuff like that in the scriptures, like Genesis 1:1, the very first verse of the Old Testament in Hebrew has something along the lines of like 30 different ways that you could mathematically derive 7 or multiples of 7 based on how you count the letters and the words, which is beyond, not only beyond statistical probability by a long ways, it's beyond even very intelligent people or people using computers and AI to create something like that out of a language in a cipher. So there's this alphanumeric aspect to it. There's number has a quality in our reality, even though the numbers are abstract in terms of what we're communicating. There's like an essence of 1. There's an essence of 2. There's an essence of 3 that is intrinsic to the makeup of the construct we're in. So, what could you say about that in terms of like the mystical nature of language and your explorations into that?
That goes really deep, brother. And I mean, it depends on where you want to go into it. There's earlier on in the Universal Transmissions stuff, I was like really deeply influenced by this writer called Michael Ellis, and he wrote a book called the Esoteric Alphabet. But if I remember it correctly, it's called the Esoteric Alphabet, and it's an amazing book. And he goes through every letter of the alphabet, higher case and lower case, and he finds the correspondence of each letter to the major arcana, to every not card, but the template or the character of each of the archetype. Sorry, so it goes on to it maps onto every single archetype, every letter, and it was that book was quite profound, and it changed my way of looking at language, the English language especially, and but from my own personal explorations and experiences, I found that that like all of the alphabets and the languages, like the alphabets themselves, their imprints or their cymatic um, imprints of actual vibrations, and like a lot of the modern alphabets, I want to find a better term, but I don't want to say bastardized, but they're kind of watered down or it restructured in a way which doesn't convey the higher dimensional principle that the older alphabets did, and the more ancient ones. And what they were based on were geometries or like toroidal geometries, or more specifically, I would say toroidal geometries, and the way
Makes me think of we've done some work recently on the Aura Linda, which is a text that has this alphabet in it. It's written in this alphabet that is derived from a circle with 6 spokes, like a 6-spoked wheel. And
Okay.
essentially, if you just take sections of that design, which is
yeah
pretty much like the seed of life of sacred geometry, you're
yeah
able to create all the letters of the English alphabet out of sections
Yeah.
of that circle with the 6 spokes. And that's very toroidal. Not to mention that design is also like 2 threes mirrored to each other.
yeah yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a beautiful point, and to kind of another correspondence of that would be the Hebrew alphabet of the way all of the different letters of the alphabet they fit together to create the symbol of the David star, or what would be the hexahedron.
Oh yeah, and that's also there it is again, 6 around 1, just like the Orlinda alphabet is another version of that. It's
Yeah.
it's the sixness of it all, like the one of the qualities of 6 as expressed in nature is like the sexual creative energy, sexual.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, so that's what, and you can go into lots of different stuff about this, especially English is, uh, there's so much stuff you can go into that. And I mean, people like Santos, Bellacci, and Savon Bomar, and they go really deep into the permutations of the way the language works in English. And but I think just in general, because I found like just it kind of replete, well, in all these different kinds of languages, and it's just more got to do with the way that the letter is formed. So just that how some forms and some shapes have a feminine structure, and some have a more masculine structure, and some pierce and some overlap, and those that's the actual energy, or the of what that feeling or what that thing is conveying. And
this one we're showing on screen right now, I have in my living room, or I think this is in my bedroom. It's somewhere in my house. There's actually several the Universal Transmissions I have as tapestries. But this one with
Yeah.
the Trinity encoded in it. You know, if there's any that I pull up that you want to just speak on specifically, let me know. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like the Chakra series that you've done as well. If I'm not mistaken, this is the Ajna chakra.
No, this is the Muladhara.
Oh, okay, the root. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
The four petals.
this is the first one that I did. So yeah, this is what this was actually I got a lot. Yeah. Well, yeah, this was I did this after a very difficult time in my life in 2017, where I spent a few months in prison, um, and I was after I was released, I was really really inspired, and I thought of this whole entire series while I was actually in there, and as soon as I got out, I started making this, and it took me. It was 2016, I think, when I started this one, and I finished the last one last year. So it was only quite a while. It took me quite a few years to finish the whole series, but they're very, very close to my heart. Because I wanted to make a series of just chakra paintings, but I didn't want them to have that classical look and feel that you could see on the yoga studios or something like that, or you could see everywhere when you looked online. I wanted to convey my personal experiences that I had with them, because I did a lot of work, and I still do, especially back then with the individual chakras, to kind of feel the energy and what it did, and the positive aspect and the negative aspect, and especially the correspondences and stuff like that. So I wanted to have this series that was unique in a way. So that's why I made these, because there was something that I would have loved to see something like this, but I never saw it in that way. So that's why I made them.
Well, the technological feeling that this art conveys about the chakras is interesting because we usually think of them in this organic sense, that they are an aspect of our physiology, of our being.
Yeah.
But in a way, so when I say technology, I always like to define the term a little more specifically, because people think of technology as being, consumer electronics, your phone, your computer, light bulbs, all that. But the word technology, to be specific, is referring to art or language, like the terms of art.
Yeah.
The way that a doctor has specific language around their profession, or a lawyer has legal language that only other lawyers are going to understand. That was what technology meant before we had electronics in the world, and then the meaning kind of shifted. But in a way, the chakras are that type of technology. They're language that your body, you can speak to your body through. There's not literally a wheel inside your body at each of the points corresponding to the chakras, but there is information that is accessible through the scaffolding of the language around chakras. That makes sense. Like, I learned this very well from doing biofield tuning, that whether or not there's literally information regarding somebody's feelings of fear around the root chakra or feelings of security, that whenever you look at your body and your energy field through the lens of that technology or language that the chakras provide, it will show you things that fit that language. Like, it will speak that language back to you. So And then there's even people that say that the chakras are like a spiritual technology specifically that is overlaid on us, or part of unlocking them as part of our ascension process. So that's one of the things I like most about this series is the way that it conveys the chakras as like a technical language, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful, brother. That's actually exactly how I experienced the chakras, and that's uh, I spent many years in my youth and childhood. Um, my mother was really deep into the New Age, so I was no stranger to what the chakras were, but they were kind of like imaginary things. It never really clicked with me. I was just kind of, they were like really just these concepts, uh, and it wasn't very well explained to me, especially in, I guess, in the methods of the books and what I was exposed to in the early and mid 90s through my mother and the whole New Age scene. But later on, when I was going through the experiences myself personally through meditation, through breath work, and with the just with the filter of language and uh, of knowing that technology is original technology is the human body, and original technology is the blueprint of nature, and looking at it through that lens, it, I was able to really deeply, understand what the chakras actually were. I mean, they were kind of, these spinning vortexes or wormholes, or just this really intense codified bits of data, these energy streams that were connected to various energetic systems, like various nerves and uh, yeah, the whole body system. The way I experienced it was quite profound, and I wanted to convey that because the way that that traditionally it is shown is, I mean, it's profound in the way that it has that minimal, the minimalistic geometry, in the way that it shows masculinity and femininity and everything. It does this in a very minimal way. But that I wanted to expand that in a way that was how I understood it. And fortunately, other people, like a lot of other people, also resonated with that view or with that idea as well.
So, on the subject of the chakras as technology, it's interesting to consider our physical bodies as a language system in and of themselves, because like Chinese medicine shows us things like the acupuncture points, there's reflexology of the foot, that a point on the sole of your foot connects to your liver, and another point on it connects to your lungs. And we have that's we're just a giant interconnected system where everything's communicating to each other within the body. Your finger is connected to your ear, is connected to the heel of your foot. It's all talking to each other.
Yeah.
And I think dis-ease and health problems come from when those connections get disrupted. And we see in like the dark side of technology, transhumanism, an attempt for humanity's inner communication system to all be routed to and through an external instead of having that inner knowledge. But it's sometimes I think that our physical experience here, our bodies, are a way for universal consciousness to experience its own creativity from the inside. And I'm wondering your thoughts on that as a possibility.
As within, so without. So that's how I totally look at it. And I wish I could, practice what I preach all the time. I'm all human, so like there are times when I can just go into these spirals of ignoring resonance and falling into the trap of dissonance, and that happens a lot in this modern world. I mean, I guess it's what we call like kind of distraction, but that's the way the main way that I feel like the the way I look at it is that dissonance is what the path of this whole transhumanist agenda is going into, with or without knowing what they're doing. I mean, that's not important right now for this conversation, but the that's disharmonic with the I mean, even beyond the human organism, I would say it's with the planet itself, with the Great Mother, or with Gaia, or with anything that's based in true biology. It has this, that always has this specific resonant nature to it. It has the ability to nest itself into different geometries, and it fits perfectly. And I mean, there are people like Dan Winter who really, really go deep into this and show it perfectly, how the way different geometries, how they really, really nest into each other and create this perfect fractal harmonic picture of the entire universe, or of all existence. And I think that's something that we need to really strive into, is to reintroducing ourselves, or capturing that resonant energetic signature, that frequency. And because that's what it is. Everything is interconnected. Like we all know this. We say this. Everything is connected, and it's not just words. It is like there's a reason why a specific planet has this energetic signature of a specific color, and that color and that planet has this specific correspondence to a metal, a specific metal, and that metal has this correspondence to a specific organ, and that organ has a correspondence to a specific emotion, and everything is nested into each other in such a perfect way. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, and this, I mean, binary systems, and they don't fit into this. It's not compatible in any way. And I think that's what we're kind of realizing as a species. I mean, I'm not seeing this much here in Turkey, but from what I follow a lot of different, especially like different biohacking podcasts, and or mainly in the biohacking podcasts, there are a lot of new technologies and methodologies being, shown, and it's more about resonance, and it's quite exciting. And Yeah.
Biofield tuning is a major one of those things, tuning forks to help balance the energy field. And
Yeah.
essentially, the
Yeah.
energy field is some kind of physical vibratory resonance of the person's mind, memories, and emotions, but it's measurable. So we're entering an age where it's funny how like it ended up actually being very simple to find the material extension of these subtle energies, these mental energies that uh, the scientism has tried so hard to claim doesn't exist, and that everything has to have a particular existence, if you will. But
Yeah.
the correspondences, man, I don't know that mankind has fully mapped out all the correspondences of the body and the cosmos. I think there's room for improvement on that, and maybe not all of it is in terms of like what's thought in Western occultism is 100% accurate, but
Yeah.
because I can't verify it, but maybe it is more accurate than I thought. But I like to tell the story of how I was doing a tuning for somebody, and they had major problems in their life with authority figures, feeling blocked by negative authority figures, and was we were working on their knees to help them with knee injuries and knee pain. And I I drew a tarot card to help me understand some of the stuck energy I was running into at a certain point in their timeline. I got the Devil card, which is Capricorn, and Capricorn
Yeah.
rules the knees, and the Devil card is a Saturn card, and Saturn is
Yeah.
authority. And then as the session unfolded, I found out that they had severe lead poisoning that they didn't know where it came from, and
Yeah.
lead is the
Yeah.
Saturnian metal. So at
Yeah.
that point, I always assumed there was probably some good alchemical reasons for the planetary correspondences to certain metals and all that. But
Yeah.
there it was right in front of my face, the indirect experience that we had authority, the knees, and lead all coalescing into one specific like story and problem for this individual. And at that point, I was like, okay, there's definitely Saturn and lead is definitely a thing. Um, but as we're kind of winding down the first hour, there's so many more things I want to talk to you about. I'm excited for part two, especially to get into your story of your self illumination and uh, coming through the other side of a very difficult dark night of the soul experience that you recently had. I wanted to talk. I wanted you to speak on, to inspire our first hour audience as we're finishing up, what you might say to somebody out there who wants to make it in terms of their livelihood and their profession as an artist. What encouragement or thoughts you could give them about taking the leaps of faith required to support yourself on your own creativity and not in as in a dependent state as that's I think seems to be the hardest part for people, is that transition point from doing the art on the side and to making it their livelihood and their material support system.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that I would say would be to when you're first starting out, I think feedback and support from the people you love is most important, because those people are the people who will not break your spirit. And that is when your spirit is most fragile in that part of the journey. That's when you need um, the most push or the most inspiration. And if you're not going to make it, then you're not going to make it anyway. But if you are, I mean, if you go out into just the harsh world and uh, try to show what you've done and what you're doing in that period of, just amateur inspiration. A lot of people will have no problems of shooting you down. I mean, and that's what I wanted to say, was just don't give a fuck about what people that you don't know think in the beginning. And I mean, just go with what you know in your heart, and allow people who love you to help you push through that initial period. And then another thing I would say would be, I mean, education is different in every part of the world. But in most parts of the world, it's expensive, and especially in the States. So I would definitely advise against going to art school, because I mean, the only thing that I got out of going to art school was I got introduced to all these different kinds of drugs. I went to lots of parties, and I guess I was introduced to different types of people. It was like a social thing, right? But I mean, I didn't really learn I mean, I could have learned any of that on my own, or I could have learned that from a specific mentor. I could have learned that from a bunch of tutorials or something. Like back then, there wasn't any tutorials. There was like the internet was very new when I was going to art school, but still, I mean, I could have learned. Which I did. I learned a lot of painting techniques from a very close friend of mine, who was also at the art school. He was two grades above me, and who like really high. And he taught me so much more than any other teacher did, or any professor taught me in art school. And I found my own way and created my own style, and it was just this way of self-discovery. So, and then, I mean, God knows how much you have to pay to go and everything. I went to what do you call it? When you don't pay money.
Oh, it's like a scholarship?
Yeah, kind of. I had this kind of scholarship in Australia when I went to the school there. So, but I didn't pay much at all. But there were people who were paying like tons of money to go there, and I remember that the teacher there, the first day, our first class, we had like 30 people in the class, and he looked at us and he said, I'm going to say something like really harsh. He said, only 2 people in this class are going to become artists, and the rest will move on to do other things. And then looking back years later, like that's exactly what happened, because we kept in touch for many years. Maybe some have gone back and done something, I don't know, but it was me and one other friend in my class who actually did do professional art, went on to do professional art, and the rest, they did other things. They went on to do other things. And it's, I mean, so I don't think education is a major part of it. I think, and a lot of the time, it kind of stifles creativity.
I think some of the teachers in education are failed artists themselves, and kind of pass their own pessimism in a way forward, and kind of curse people that are more mentally malleable to that kind of opinion.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was, for me, it was quite depressing at times, you know, and because my whole thing was I wanted to do something new, something completely different that nobody was doing. And what I would get from all my teachers was like, well, it can't be done. It's all done. Everything is like, it's all done. So all you can do is just a variation or your own specific twist or something like that. And I was saying, okay, I mean, but I was still had this, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do something different. And then I don't know if I did, like,
I would say the Universal Transmissions Codex is something different.
yeah, that's what I was going to come to. Like, I got onto that whole psychedelic and visionary art scene, and it felt good to be doing something outside of the norms of traditional art. But then what really empowered me was like, okay, I'm going to do something else from this. And I made something that I felt was like my own, that I hadn't not really seen before, was that whole Universal Transmissions series, which is, it's what I love most about my art is that whole series of that book, the Codex. So, and apart from that, I would say that this is the boring part, but just do the work. I mean, for me, it took me years. It took me years and I didn't do the work. I would do lots of practice on and off. And the more I practiced, the better I got. But when you can't earn money from it, or when you just kind of can't break through, it kind of puts you off and you start doing other things and stuff like that. And I've been there, I did that. I mean, after a while, I got kind of not bored, but I was frustrated by it. So I went and I studied film and cinema. So I went to, when I moved back to Turkey, I studied cinema and TV production, and I went into like art films, and I started making animations and video art and short animated films and short films, and I got quite a bit of what would you call them, accolades? Well, it was like I started to get this good following, like I was getting awards and stuff, and then that's when, for some reason, I just, around that time, I guess that's when I discovered psychedelic art and DMT at the same time, and it completely shifted my worldview, and I went back into creating art. And then that's when I went back with a passion. I didn't watch movies, I didn't watch TV, I didn't go out, I didn't party, I didn't drink or do drugs. All I did was just, I sat and I studied. I learned all the programs, and I watched all the videos, and I just made tons and tons of shitty artworks, like just artworks that, you know, that didn't work. But I kept doing it. I kept doing it, and then after a while, I thought, well, this is not bad actually. This is not bad. And after a few of them, I thought, I'll post one onto the concept art forums. It was, I think, Android Jones owned one of them. It was like massive black concept art forums or something like that back then. And then I got quite a bit of interest on it. And then I thought, yeah, I might as well share this online. And then after that, I thought it just opened up for me. It was just this, something clicked, but that was after well after 10,000 hours of just practice and really, really grinding and doing it. But it's not easy because you need to pay the bills. You need to It's really, really difficult. I know it's not easy, but I think it's with everything that you do in life. If you have that passion, then nothing will get in your way. That's the way it happened with me.
The thing I want to zero in on about your story there is the point where you felt frustrated and so you went into other things for a while.
Yeah,
I think that's really key for a takeaway for people, that to understand that frustration is a feeling that is part of the like negative or stagnant aspect of sacral chakra energy. So think about it.
yeah,
The sacral chakra has the stomach in it. And
yeah,
so the opposite of frustration, the positive polarity is satisfaction.
yeah,
And your self-worth and your ability to generate abundance or have rewards come to you and for your effort, for your work, that's all sacral chakra stuff. So for people out there, especially like on the threshold or in the more difficult part of the journey where paying the bills might seem harder because of their skill level or their how many connections they have to other people who might actually support their work, to pay attention to your frustration versus satisfaction axis and do everything that you can to express and eliminate or release frustrated feelings and or resentful feelings. Resentment is part of that too. And instead it enhance and intentionally seek to feel and generate the feeling of self-satisfaction inside, like as a physical feeling. And notice how the frustration will lead you to want to go do something else or lead you away from the path. And if that's an unconscious, people don't connect those two things, or like not necessarily realizing that they're so related. But if you can monitor your frustration levels and mitigate them, you will not be as likely to stray from the path that you really want to be on. I think that's a biggie.
beautiful. That's beautiful, man. Exactly. I mean, that's what tantra is the realization of the polar opposites of what one aspect of one thing is, and the opposite aspect is actually the same thing. It's just the different degrees of the same thing, and being able to transcend that is the power to be able to go above and beyond and push through, which is part of the ingenuity of the human spirit. So it's powerful stuff. I thank you for reminding me of that. Yeah,
So good. Yeah, you can transmute your frustration into satisfaction with willpower, with especially like bodily energy practices, gratitude practices. All of that is very, very possible. And
yeah,
you'll notice the times in your life where you feel most satisfied is when it's the easiest to get money too. Money comes to
yeah,
you easily and automatically. Frustration is like signal to the universe of I don't deserve a reward, or resentment is like they're not going to reward me or whatever. But yeah,
yeah, yeah.
we've gone long on the first hour. I'm ready to switch us over to part two. Thanks for the extra time though. I thought that
Oh, my
would be
pleasure.
really good for our crowd to hear you talk about your journey there as someone who's a extremely professional artist. Like definitely put in the bazillion hours needed. So we'll see everyone on the second hour. We've got a really interesting story and more to elucidate about the truths of tantric practices and transmuting those polarities from the toxic and the negative into the pure and the powerful. So thanks for being here, Hakan. Where can people find your work?
Thank you, brother. It was amazing as usual. And that's not very usual, but so like yeah. You just I guess just if you Google my name and uh, my website is got some issue that I've been trying to fix. there's a problem with the server. So I'm going to be spending the next couple of months, and I'm going to create a brand new website. And I guess it's time to redo it into something much more beautiful. As but that website is hakanhisim.net, which is not very functional at the moment. But if you just type my name into Google, you'll come up with my web shop, web store, and there's also Universal Transmissions.net. Or if you just write Universal Transmissions, will come up in the first 2 or 3 searches, like in Google as well. And yeah, I mean, if you just type my name in Google, it'll come up in the first page, everything you need to, all the links.
Good deal. Yeah, and I'll be in the show notes as well for people, quick access. And with that, thanks everyone for listening. See all of our supporters on the other side. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this one as much as I did. Talking to Hakan has been in the making for a few years now. Patiently waiting for the time when we could align again and make something happen, and did not disappoint. There are some people in the world who just live a more epic life. And in my opinion, Hakan is one of those people. So really what we got here is 2 podcasts. The first half is more than an hour. I think we got to about an hour and a half. So that's exciting. But the overall thing is 3 hours. And that's because of the second part. Hakan has a story to tell. And to be completely honest, I can't remember a story more epic and engaging and important and inspiring than this one ever being told on my show, or maybe any other. I'm not just exaggerating here. I don't think I've said that before. But this is an account of true spiritual transmutation, the inner work that allows the outer world to shift. So I'll just go ahead and describe what's there in the second part. And if you want to get into that, I really think this is the time to become a Plus member, even if it's just for this conversation. Even if you just want to get on my Patreon, do the $5 per month pledge, stick with it for just the month. I mean, this is a thing well worth your time. And while you're subscribed for that measly $5, you're going to get access to all the archives of extended shows from the end of time to now, or the beginning of time, I suppose. You can also get it on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com/InnerVerse, and that gets you the access to all of the other premium content on the network, so also very worth your time. So what we talked about in the part 2, we started out his discussion about these experimental research chemical analogs of ketamine. And of course, I don't think it needs to be said, but neither of us is in any way endorsing people to use psychedelics or drugs for any reason at all. It's your own decision if you want to. And if you were going to, I would say maybe stick with the organic and natural stuff like your psilocybin. And far be it from me to tell you that you should never, ever expand your consciousness using plant medicines. Probably most of you out there have at some time, at some point. But this story is going to help you see how it's not actually necessary to, or in any way, the path that will lead you to an enlightenment experience. So Hakan talks about these ketamine analogs and the plant medicines trickster consciousness, that they seem to have some kind of agency over the world even when you're not on them. He describes the hypomanic state that he was in when he was experimenting with this, and generally amazing accounts of how certain dissociative states can actually accelerate the thoughts manifesting into reality window. Again, not a good thing or a bad thing. It's kind of like taking out a loan. The bill comes due later, and there's usually interest. So we talked about drug-induced possession, and it leads to the big story of Hakan being imprisoned in a maximum security and in Turkey, which does not sound fun. It was an unlawful imprisonment in a way,
but spiritually, it seemed like the right thing to happen in terms of where he was at. And he takes full responsibility and ownership for that. And it is such an interesting transformation that he describes as he's in there being forced to peel away the masks of false identity. And this was all happening during the time while the world was putting on the paper masks during 2020. And while he's in there, he talks about receiving techniques, or what you call tantra, not the sexual kind, from teachers in his dreams. Reminds me of Jason Quitt, actually, because he has stories like that. Hakan talks about finding the prana, the life force energy in the liminal spaces, the space between breath. A lot of breath work is part of the journey here. And he finds the way to experience the hermetic union of opposites. We talk about how pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. And Hakan describes a Kundalini rising experience and a type of nirvanic, like enlightenment experience that's happening in prison. But why this is important, and also you get the big payoff of finding out how he got out of prison, which is the most mind-blowing part probably. But this is such an important conversation because he's going to help you see the difference between like a true samadhi experience and the psychedelic shortcut, and why they're not the same, and why the latter does not guarantee the former in any way. So an hour and a half of amazing storytelling. It's going to blow your mind. Thank you for being patient about the not so great audio quality of the interview. We did our best. We just didn't have the equipment to make it perfect, but I think it's quite audible. Better than last time I had him on, when I had less experience in processing audio and making it sound good. And I just want to say thanks to everybody who's listening and supporting the show. Check out his website. Get yourself some awesome artistic merchandise. I really love everything I've got from him. I mean, it's all over my house, like I said. And we have plans to bring Hakan back pretty soon, and there's a lot of stuff we want to talk about. Like, we teased the Cosmic Egg, which is a piece of art that he did back in the day, and I bring it up all the time. If you're a longtime listener, I'm sure you've seen it. But we didn't have time to actually get there, so that'll be a big topic next time we have him on, and we'll just maybe discuss more about tantra, the real tantra, the meditation and breathing techniques that help us be fully rooted in the present moment, where all the life is, where all the power is, where no victimhood is, where all personal responsibility is. And I won't be too much more long-winded about this outro. It was already a epically long show, so I'll get us onto the outro music and finish up. But again, just thanks for being here. If there's one episode worth signing up for Plus for, this is the one. You're going to want to hear the story. We could not put it in the first half in the free hour. We needed it to be but safely behind the paywall. So check it out. Enjoy it. Thanks for the support. Hit me up for tunings. There's still some space left in the year. November's starting to fill up on my tuning schedule. And then it's just December, and then we're into the next year. I know that Gregorian, annual demarcation of 12/31 is pretty subjective and not necessarily a big deal. But, if you want it to be in 2023, then get on it. We'll get it on the schedule. We'll make it happen. And we've had some awesome results lately. I know I say that all the time, but someday I need to just come on here and read through my tuning journal, my trip reports of people's tuning experiences, and then their feedback afterward, because it is pretty awesome stuff. So hit me up, chance@InnerVersePodcast.com. Recommend me as a guest to some of your favorite shows out there. Help us spread the good word of what we're doing here, the solutions-oriented content that we produce. I say we, it's me. But it's we because it's all of you guys with your support that allows me to do it. And I love you so much. Have a great rest of your evening or day, depending on where you're at in the world, and catch you on the next one. Be good.
Something ain't right.